We've been continuing in our quest to become the greatest people, and at the moment we're focused on Cheshbon and Nefesh, which means personal accounting. And we're going through the introduction of the book Cheshbon and Nefesh, which I suggest you should pick up, by the way. I think it's about 27 shekels or something. Well worth it. Pardon? Everyone should have it. And at the moment we're talking about your Nefesh Habehemit. So your Nefesh Habehemit means your animal soul. You have an animal drive. Literally, your body, your physicality, you're no different from an animal. The only thing that actually makes you different from an animal is your intellect. Apart from that, your body is just about chasing pleasure, physical and material pleasure. And then you have your godly soul, Nefesh Elokid, which is just chasing spirituality and godliness and God, really. And we've said very many times, and we'll say it again, Judaism never says kill the Nefesh Habehemit. It says train it. So in the East it says get away from food, sex and money. In the West it's all about food, sex and money. Judaism says no, there's a place for food, sex and money. In the right time, in moderation, for the right reason. Use your money to help people, eat food consciously and say a blessing, physical intimacy with the right person at the right time. We're okay with that. And it's a much harder thing. It's much easier just to cut it off, actually, than to engage in it consciously. Even with fasting, by the way. Fasting on Yom Kippur, it might feel a bit, you get a bit hungry, but it's actually quite easy because you know I'm just not eating. Whereas if you choose, I'm just going to eat fruit in the morning, it's much harder because it rouses your appetite. So you start tasting a bit, so you get an appetite, so it's harder then to hold back. So the middle path is actually very difficult. The extremes are very easy. Either get completely lost in physicality or completely cut yourself off from physicality. To walk the middle road, very difficult. And that's what the Torah is here for. The Torah is to help us know when, how much, where, why, what. Nefesh Habehemit dato ketzara me'od. Your animal soul, its mind is very short. It's got a very short, small world of focus. Just focused on, as it will say here, he tzofer be'enei basar. You're just looking through physical, material eyes. She'eino ro'ot ele b'samuch b'galui u'v'shel achshav. You only see immediate things, revealed things, and just now. It's just immediate pleasure, instant gratification. So he said, for example, an animal, a hungry animal in front of food, that's what it sees. It's basically a robot. So we had said a few classes ago that he says we're almost no different to an animal in that sense. You see, you eat, you do, you feel, you get angry, you shout, you're tired, you sleep. You're basically just very short scope of vision. It's called meichin de katnut, which means constricted consciousness. And then we have something called meichin de gadlut. Meichin de gadlut is expanded awareness, where you can actually see beyond. And it loses the ability to push away meaningless things for meaningful things, secondary stuff for what's real, and push away random temporary things for established good things. It's just in the moment right now. Now it's actually very funny because the highest level of consciousness is to be in the moment. So you got to get the balance. There's one thing called instant gratification, which is I'm just in the moment, but the moment is controlled by my feelings. Whatever I feel, I do in the moment. I need now to satisfy this craving. There's a deeper level of being in the moment which goes beyond your feelings. It goes into your soul. It goes beyond your mind and your feelings, and being truly in the present moment where you're experiencing spirituality. As we've said a few times, Hashem is the present moment, basically. Your mind, by definition, is always past or future. Doubting, worrying, planning, regretting, hoping. Whereas God is now. As you said.
Why can't Hashem be the past or the future?
Well, Hashem's everything.
Right.
But there is only now. The past isn't and the future isn't. We're basically living in constant present moments. We're moving forward in present moments. The past doesn't exist anymore. In the future, what is it? The past is history. The future is a mystery. Now is the present. That's why it's called a gift. Now is a gift.
Today is
a gift.
The present, but that's what
it's called
a gift. That's why they call it present. Yeah.
Something like that. Anyway, that's cute. But in real life, what is Hashem? Hashem is infinite consciousness. And Hashem is actually, by definition, beyond time and space. There is no past and future in Hashem's essence. However, obviously there is a past and future in finite consciousness that we're part of, but still, how do you connect to infinite consciousness? By getting into a place of presence, which is that there's no past and future. Very simple example, or just experience. Have you ever been learning Gemara, and you just getting into your sugya, and then suddenly you look up and it's 2 hours later? Right. And you're like, if you haven't yet, you'll get there one day. It's amazing. Or you've done that, you played video games and it's 2 hours later. You've done something where you completely lost track of time. Why? Because you were so in the present moment that time wasn't really a thing at that time. So there's something called getting caught up in Gemara or video games. There's something called getting caught up in God. You're so aware of God, you're so connected to your soul that there's no time anymore, you're just present. In fact, the word for God, Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey, in Hebrew grammar, a Yud at the beginning is continuous. Present continuous in English grammar. And Hey and Vav and Hey spells Hoveh, which means present. So even the name God, Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey, means the continuous present. So there's the animalistic present, which is fulfill my desire, but then there's the spiritual present, which is just be in a state of God consciousness. Vigam muchuseret gevura. Also, the animal soul has no gevura, which means strength and boundaries and limitations. It can't hold itself back. It has no self-control. Animals don't have self-control. If an bull sees red, it's going. It can't be like, well, should I really do this? Is it the right thing? No self-control. It's controlled. The bull is controlled by that red thing, and the animal is controlled by the food and the desire and just no sense of barriers, boundaries, borders. Now you can train an animal, but that's not called self-control. So you could hit an animal, for example, so then it behaves in a certain way, but that's not called self-control. That's called external control. It doesn't want to get punished. It doesn't have the strength to awaken itself from its lazy sleepiness. So even you got a dog or a cat and it's lying in the sand, it would never be able to say to itself, you know what, it's probably better to go for a run now. Or maybe there's something, it can't do that. It's just a robot, and when it's tired, it's tired. You, by the way, you can overcome your mood. When you're tired, you can still go to the gym. Actually, not necessarily that's the right thing to do, but I'm just saying, for example, when you're tired, you can go to the gym. When you're hungry, you can not eat. You can overcome your mood. That's what it almost not what it means to be a human being, but that's something that a human being has that an animal doesn't have. You don't have to go according to your mood. That's why you don't get hangry. There's this thing, hangry. I'm hungry, and therefore I'm a bit more short-tempered when I'm hungry. You're not like that. That's for children. Children get hangry. It's like when Shimshon is 10 o'clock at night and he starts behaving not so well, and we say he's tired, and he is tired. Because when he's tired, he can't function properly. So some grown-ups, also when they're tired and hungry, they can't function properly, but not you. Because you're not an animal. You can, so what, I'm hungry, so what, I'm tired, I have to function. I've got to be there, I can't not function. So you can override your internal system. So he can't push himself to do a mitzvah. Remember we said before, your Nefesh Habehemit, your animal soul, has no interest in spirituality and mitzvahs. What does it get out of putting on tefillin? Nothing. Although, this is where I speak about you're training the Nefesh Habehemit. It gets to the point where you actually love the feeling of putting on tefillin, even the physical feeling of putting on tefillin and wearing tefillin. So that is when you've now trained your Nefesh Habehemit to enjoy even the act of putting on tefillin. It just feels so good. Like, you want to do that. So that's a case where I've trained my animal to even enjoy that. But in general, the animal's not enjoying putting a box on its head, on its arm. In fact, that's a bit strange to do that. It feels so good. When you're first starting out and you haven't put on tefillin for a long time, you don't have it. But now, by this point, you're just like, but you've got to be careful not to do it by rote then, because you might just be like, it's just when you're so good at it, but then you can be conscious. We spoke about this before. You've got to get into good habits, but not do them habitually. So of course I say a bracha before and after I eat. I'm in a habit. That's a good habit to be in, but I'm not saying them habitually. Baruch Atah Hashem. I'm doing my good habits consciously. So putting on your tefillin, now that you don't have to think and it's a bit awkward and you've got to move the body, you're not thinking about that, you're just free to just feel. And then you don't want to take them off too quickly. You see some people already before Aleinu, they're starting to take off their tefillin. It's like, why? Just sit with your tefillin, learn a little bit afterwards. V'lo od, ela Kashemikidsin ota pam upam ota mitzvah atzma. When you actually do arouse the animal soul to do a mitzvah, as I nase lo morad ruach, it then gets resentful. It's like, I don't want to do that. I'm not getting anything. The amount of people who say, you know what, it just doesn't do it for me. Shabbos doesn't do it for me. Tefillin doesn't do it. It just doesn't do it for me. Now I'll get myself to do it sometimes, but then they start becoming resentful. So what's the answer to that? It's a fair enough thing, by the way. Many people come out to me and said, it's not doing it for me. How do you change that? It's something that the Nefesh Habehemit can't really fully understand. Meaning. What's the meaning? Why am I doing this? I spoke to a girl yesterday from the seminary. These are from girls, FFBs. They were religious their whole life. And she said, look, I just don't want to daven. The words, I just don't want to do it. And I said, do you ever speak to God in English? And she goes, yeah, I speak to God sometimes, but I just don't want to daven. So I said to her, well, what does Baruch mean? And she just looked at me and she said, I don't know. She said, blessed. I said, no, but what does it mean? What does the shoresh, what does Baruch mean? She said, I don't know. And I said, right. So how are you meant to enjoy davening if you don't even know what... Imagine I'm speaking to my wife and I'm just saying, flubbity bubbly bubbly boo. That's what people are doing when they're reading the Siddur with no understanding. So then they say it's meaningless. I'm like, of course it's meaningless, because you're just mumbling words. So we've got to find the depth and the meaning, which the animal soul's not interested in depth and meaning. So you're not getting instantaneous physical pleasure from davening, so the animal soul's not interested in it. So even if you push it to do it once in a while, in the end it's just going to be like, I'm not into this. And remember, the voice of the animal soul is the Yetzer Hara, and the voice of the godly soul is the Yetzer Tov. So you have these two voices. Now which one's louder? Whichever one you're feeding, whichever one you're listening to. So if you keep listening to that one, it becomes louder. Lo lekayem mitzvah lo taseh. Also, it can't hold back. It can't avoid the forbidden things. V'la'amad afilu bifnei ruach matzuya. Even this is great. This is our Gemara with the sukkah on the boat. A ruach matzuya, a common wind. It comes up everywhere. This is a common wind. Your Nefesh Habehemit, your animal soul, can't even stand a small. You want it a little bit, it's going to go and do it. It's just going to collapse. Or everyone's saying to him, come on, it's okay. Don't be so frum. You can do it like this. It doesn't matter, just a little bit. It's okay. Just a little thing, it's already gone. Shal taivas Habehemit, you got animal things. V'chol shekein beruach she'eina matzuya, even in this uncommon wind.
Wow.
Strong wind. Hanikra nisayon, which is called a real nisayon. When you get a real test, you got no chance of doing that because you can't even deal with small tests. This also goes for your character traits. Many people, they get offended very quickly and very easily. Like anything, like very, very oversensitive. And that's for a little thing. Someone says something completely not bad and they'll take it and they'll get offended by it. So what about when someone actually does insult them? They'll freak out. See, this is your animal side. Your Yetzahara, this voice, is the Nefesh of Habehemit. They're working together. So whatever your Yetzahara says, the Nefesh of Habehemit is like, yeah, let's go and do that. They love it. Yetzahara, come on, it's good. Yeah.
How do you train yourself when it comes to situations that are rare to exercise self-control in microscopic instances of like anger, or but you can't really practice not getting angry?
You can.
You can?
Yeah.
Okay.
In terms of, let's say you bang your knee. Say, if you're seeing your life as a test of this, then self-control is a muscle that you can train. So not getting angry in an intense situation is just a level of very high self-control. It's all self-control. It's not separate. There's the anger, the fear, the lashon hara, and I've got to learn different things for each of them. They're all different aspects of self-control. To be able to notice, I'm about to speak lashon hara, that takes self-control to not speak it. I'm about to get angry and shout, that takes self-control not to. So it's all self-control. So that you can do. We've learned, the Piazetzner says, in little things. For example, at lunch, you want to take seconds, don't. Like if you're hungry, do. But he's saying, like when you're not hungry, when you don't need it. Or if there are two types of, they often have chicken and meat, for example, at lunch. And you like them both, they're both fine. You'd have them both, but you like the meat a little bit more than chicken. Have the chicken instead. Not crazy things, just take on very, very small tests. And what's that doing? That's just saying, I'm not going to let my desire control which meat I have. I do want them both, but I want that one more, so I'm going to not feed that desire. I'm going to do that one. So then I still get the nice chicken, still get what I desire, but I've also had a little bit of self-control. The other way, especially with the anger, any character trait is to prepare. What does that mean? You got to think, what are my negative character traits? Whenever I see my mum, I know she's going to nag me, I know I'm going to get angry. Not my mum, but my mum's amazing, Baruch Hashem. It's just using this example. I know that when I see my mum, I know that when I go on Instagram and I see other people's girlfriends, it makes me jealous. I know when the alarm goes off, I'm going to feel lazy. I know when I get stuck in a traffic jam or I'm waiting for the bus, I'm going to get impatient. You have to know when that thing is going to come up. So what triggers your anger? Become very aware what triggers my anger. And then put yourself in that position. Imagine yourself in that position. You see your mother, you're in a traffic jam, whatever. Or I know whenever I see the schnitzel, I'm going to get greedy and out of control. Put yourself in that situation, and go through it in your mind, your physiology. That means, how am I standing? How am I breathing? What am I thinking? So when my mum starts nagging me, I feel my shoulders are slouched over. I'm thinking, why wouldn't you just leave me alone? I'm a grown up now. What's wrong with you? I'm breathing quite shallow. And put yourself in that state and see that and how that feels and you're feeling angry. Now, go back over it, but play out a positive state, how you would like to be in that situation. So when my mum starts nagging me, I'm actually standing up straight, I'm breathing deeply, and I'm thinking, Baruch Hashem, my mum cares about me, otherwise she wouldn't nag me. And I'll just tell her, thank you so much for caring about me, and I'll be very relaxed. And then imagine and picture that over and over again. You're stuck in a traffic jam, picture yourself in the car freaking out, bashing the light, thinking, well, I've got to be late, then flip it. Picture yourself sitting up straight and calm and saying, okay, I'll get there when I get there, and putting on some nice music. So this is training. So basically what you're doing is you're retraining your response. You're creating a higher state of being. And the more deep you can do that, the more powerfully you can do that, the more you can trigger that. Your mum triggers anger, you're retraining yourself to your mum triggers calm. So try it. It's very, very powerful. And then how I used to do it was say, like, what would a tzaddik do in this situation? Or what would my best self be doing in this situation? Now, if you didn't train before, it's harder to do it in the moment. So you're training yourself before. This is what top athletes do. Top athletes in the morning, they eat a certain thing and they listen to certain music. And Tony Robbins speaks about this a lot. Tony Robbins says he got all these top athletes, and this one, I've forgotten who it was, won the 100 meters in the Olympic Games, something like that. But then, pardon? Maybe. I thought he was running. Anyway, I'll find it. Whatever it was. And then for 2 years he was terrible. He just didn't do very well. So he came to Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins says, remember when you won the gold medal in the Olympic Games? Tell me exactly what you did. What time did you go to sleep? What did you eat the night before? What time did you go to sleep? What time did you get up? What did you eat in the morning? What music were you listening to? Basically he went through the whole thing and he said, next race you do that. You go to sleep, you listen to that, and he actually writes what tune it was, whatever, and he won again, because he just put himself in a state. So you can start controlling your state, because your state, that creates your experience. So put yourself in that state and practice it. My mum says that's going to kick in this state. And the Ramchal in Mesilas Yesharim says, know that all of life is a test. So if you're prepared for the test, okay, this is a test. Hashem's going to test me with a traffic jam. What does it mean to pass that test? Imagine that you had a job interview for the best job, is your dream job. And the day before the job interview, the alarm goes off late, and you get up late and you start screaming and cursing, and then you bang your knee, and then you slip in the shower, and then you pour your cereal all over yourself, then you miss the bus, and you're freaking out. You go to the job interview and they say, look, we need a cool, calm person. We're going to watch you for a day to see how you react to life, and if we see that you're cool and calm, then you get the job. So you get up the next day, and you gave them permission to put cameras in your house or whatever, and you get up, the alarm goes off late, and you get up and you're like, fine. And you get in the shower, you bang your knee, you're like, okay, so I bang my knee, Baruch Hashem, I got another knee. And then you spill your cereal, you're like, okay, so I don't need cereal today. You miss the bus, you say, well, it's a nice day, I'll walk. Why? What happened? It's exactly the same triggers, but because you knew that they're watching you, you completely reacted in a different way. So know that Hashem's watching you. Know that the whole of this life is basically a job interview for the world to come. And Hashem's saying, I'm going to send you difficult people and difficult situations and things that are going to make you angry and things that are going to make you impatient and things that are going to make you frustrated. And I'm going to send you those things, but it's just to help you be a calmer person. Someone once said to me, this is why I don't believe in Hashem, because I'm a very impatient person and Hashem knows that, and the other day I had an important meeting and Hashem didn't, and the bus didn't come on time. So he said, that's why there can't be a God, because God knows I'm impatient, so therefore he would send the bus on time.
What did you say? This is silly. What did you say to that?
Punched him in the face. I said to him, God knows you're impatient, so he doesn't want you to be impatient anymore. He wants you to become a calmer person, because that would be good for you, not for him. And therefore he puts you in situations that are going to test your patience. And by the way, once you pass that test and you become patient and relaxed, then I think Hashem doesn't need to send the bus late. At that point Hashem will just send the bus, because you don't need that test anymore. And if on one occasion the bus still doesn't come, then it doesn't matter, because you're patient now. You can wait for it. But most of the time, I think once you pass the test, Hashem stops giving you that test. It's pointless. He'll give you another deeper, more difficult test at that point.
What if you see someone treating another person the way that you don't like, and maybe it's not your place to say something, but you can't help yourself?
Hold on. If it's not your place to say something, then there's no such thing as you can't help yourself. You must help yourself. However, in general,
how do you judge whether it's your place? No.
there's so many factors. Who is it? Your rabbi, your teacher. But I think there's always a place to go and help people in a loving way and say, from what I've been learning, it would seem that way of behaving isn't the best for you. Something like that. But it's going to be very different in each case. But especially here, it's good because you know, hopefully, that everyone's actually consciously working on themselves. If someone came out to me and says, Rav Dobbe, I've just noticed that you are behaving in a certain way that isn't befitting, then I'd take that seriously. And I wouldn't then say, you're right and I'm wrong. I'd say, okay, let me consider that. Hashem wanted me to hear that feedback. Either to say, no, actually, I think I'm being okay, or to change myself. That's fine. So if you're in an environment of people who are willing and open and want to work on themselves, it's much easier to give feedback. But it has to be coming from a loving place, not a... If you ever go and put people down and criticize them, they can't hear that in general. Unless, of course, you can hear that. You're on a higher level. Even if someone does criticize you and do it in a bad way, you can take that because you're like, okay, so I needed to hear this for whatever reason.
What do you think about a compliment sandwich? Like a criticism sandwich.
Say something nice first.
Say something nice first, then say your criticism, then say something nice.
Yes, I don't like the word criticism.
Right.
I'd say encouragement or guidance.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you should always say something nice first. Say, wow, I noticed you're such a great person. By the way, you but you got nice shoes.
Yeah.
It just means people can take it. It says in Pirkei Avot that you should be ohev et tochacha. You should love getting rebuked. You should love it. Of course why? That obviously makes sense, because through getting rebuked you can grow, and you should love growing. And you don't have a big ego. Once again, just because you're rebuked doesn't mean you're wrong. You should love getting rebuked because maybe you have to stand up for your principles. But it definitely, every time you get rebuked in any way, you should at least take a moment to contemplate, well, is there any truth to what this person's saying? And there might be no truth, there might be a little bit of truth, there might be all truth. But you should love being rebuked. In fact, big companies pay people to rebuke them and say, here, this is how you get your business better.
Thousands of dollars.
Thousands of dollars to tell them how they're doing things wrong. Why? Because they value their business and their money. So if you value your life, then you should value being told what you're doing wrong. Me and Rav Moshe Chaim before, we haven't done it for a couple of years to be honest, but we used to sit down and tell each other what we thought was not good about each other. But you have to be very good friends to be able to do that. You have to be very, very, very close to do that. And we didn't have anything that terrible to say to each other. We're not doing terrible things, but little bit of ego there. Think maybe you say this right. It's very in your face to do that. But that's because we both wanted to grow and we both trusted each other. That our rebuke was coming from a place of love, and I want to help you. I want you to grow.
About not being able to think